Joining us now is Greg Duras, the CEO of Western Metallica. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So your company is in Spain. You've got 4 what you call highly prospective properties. You also say this it's a little known area in the mining sector, kind of under the radar. So why Spain? And give us a brief overview of your projects.
Why Spain? So I have some experience in Spain since 2015, where I'm also the Chief Financial Officer with Emerita Resources. I moved over to Spain with my family back in 2015, we had some struggles there where the project was going sideways, and so Joaquin and I, my partner, recognized how prolific Spain was in terms of its geology, and then just being a great place to work, and the really unrecognized potential there to acquire or to attain very prospective properties in a relatively strong geological environment, and an environment that it's very, very easy to work in. I mean, so what makes Spain so nice in terms of building a company there is, first of all, it's an EU company, so it's got a strong rule of law. So, so that's certainty of title. So having experience working in other jurisdictions, at least you can be, guaranteed of title. And then it's a very much a mining-friendly jurisdiction. I would say Spain is almost, well, the whole Iberian Peninsula is quite unique from the rest of Western Europe in that they do recognize the importance of mining. And then the overall geological environment is very favorable. And it's got simply a long history of copper, zinc, and gold mining there, which really I think is quite unrecognized for Bay Street.
Now, your flagship project is the Penadella, and your goal is to demonstrate an 1 million+ ounce resource. So what's the latest about that one?
Yeah, well, so I would say with Penadella, I wouldn't so much as call it our flagship. It's certainly on the top of the priority list right now. It was the property that was used for as our qualifying property for our listing back in April. And so what we are doing right now, so we do still at this point view Penadella as the most prospective and the most potential to produce that 1 million ounce resource. So where we say the 1 million ounces is just in my experience, I view that you're a real company when you can have a 1 million ounce resource on your books, because you need 1 million ounce resources to essentially build a mine, and that's ultimately our goal if we're going to be successful. And so we've stated that as our goal to identify the potential for a 1 million ounce resource. So that doesn't mean necessarily drilling off to have a 43-101 million ounce resource, but it means putting out enough scouting holes, understanding the structure and everything in the whole geological environment, that with a more intense infill drilling program, we can build out that 1 million ounces. And so what we've done initially, so the first step we did when we got our listing was we hired our VP Exploration, Giovanni Fignoli, who comes from Rural Roads and a ton of experience from a economic resource perspective.
Right.
So he understands the idea that everything's mineralized, but not everything is mineralized to a point where you're going to be able to generate an economic resource. And so that's where I've been really, strong in the sense is that, okay, we get an idea on a target, and everybody on the street loves to see big numbers like launching a 10,000 meter program. I don't want to see that yet. I want to make sure that we're going in the right direction. And I also like to see longer holes or bigger step outs, and then as long as the geologists can demonstrate some consistency between those step outs, then the infill drilling should be relatively straightforward. So what we've done at Penadella so far, we've proven up the historical stuff along the western trend of the anticline, and that's come out quite well. We've extended the strike length, and then we've tested the anticline. The first test of the anticline, we tested it coming from the north, didn't produce the results that we were hoping. So we've now, with this latest program, we're coming more from a southeast orientation at the anticline, and that's where we are now with these 4 holes, essentially a 1,500 meter program. And we haven't got the assays back, but we're encouraged to see what the rock's looking like, what the core is looking like. So we're hoping that that's where. So the whole anticline idea was originally, it kind of was presented more as a north-south structure, but it's actually kind of a folding structure as well, which has made it somewhat more complex.
Right.
But so if these results come back encouraging, then it will be easy to generate additional targets, and we can ramp up the program.
Okay, very good. And so you've also launched drilling at Sierra Alta, and you say that you've got some compelling historical data there. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So I guess the one very interesting thing about Sierra Alta is it basically is underlying it is one of the largest set of Roman workings in the area, which is indication that there's gold there. And if you look all along trends and at other deposits, at Urbana's deposit, it is quite often the significant deposits are associated with the Roman workings. I kind of associate it with Africa, with the ores, where a lot of the significant deposits are following these trends where there's been historical workings, right? And then of course with more complex and modern geological techniques, we can do more, and obviously, modern mining techniques, we can do more. So that's the one most compelling thing. And then also, Rio and Arcia did conduct some work there, primarily some rock chip sampling, and there was some very, very high grade that they demonstrated there. And it's a relatively easy structure to figure out. Actually, I would say Penadela is a more complicated structure than Sierra Alta. So we're anticipating some, we're hoping for something. So, but the main thing is we're not going to just fall in love. I think what's attractive for Western Metallic is that for a company of our size and our market cap, we're not a single asset company.
You've got some optionality.
We've got some optionality, and that's what we're trying to demonstrate, optionality. I like to say, really, in this phase right now, we're prioritizing our projects right now. So we're going to put some stuff out at Sierra Alta. We've got something going at Penadela. We're getting, also via Dora will be kind of done in conjunction. And then see where we go, and we'll see what is the most compelling assets or area to be able to generate that 1 million ounce resource.
Makes sense, and that leads us to Nueva Celti, which is
Nueva Celti, yes,
copper, and where you've seen previous production grade as high as 5%. So, to your point there, does what you do there in terms of the work you're planning to do, if at all, depend on the success of the other projects?
Yeah, it does in many ways, and I mean, I think if we would have some good success. Right now, we're focused on our gold projects for sure, but we're doing the basic things to get Nueva Celti drill ready. We've got to do, there's some a little bit of permitting that needs to be done, but nothing complicated. So it's 100% owned asset, and it is very compelling. Some people that when we visit it, they like that asset more than the gold. But I mean, people are also more gold bugs or base metal bugs. But the fact that it was a mine and reporting head grades of 5% copper certainly is very compelling. And what Asturiana de Zinc did, they did those 19 holes, which generate some really nice copper, zinc, and lead values. They were basically it was very tight spacing because we figured that what they were going to actually bring that thing back into production. And so they needed to generate a reserve to do that, and that's where the spacing was very tight. So what we would do before we would do anything, I mean, whether it would be if we're having a lot of success there and we would option out this project, because it is in a different area of Spain, so it's essentially 700 kilometers, south of where we are with Asturias. We would do some step-out holes and see if there's actually continuity and you could generate a sizable copper or base metal resource there, and then we would figure out where we go. Whether we take that on as our core asset if our assets in the north aren't producing what we'd like to see, or we would do some sort of option or sit on it. The beauty of our projects is they are essentially 100% owned, with the exception of Sierra Alta, where we've got the option agreement with Emerita, and royalty free, and also with the Spanish mining law. There's no participation by the government when you get to the exploitation. So we're familiar with other jurisdictions where to get your exploitation license you having to give the government 20% non-participation, and then also royalties, whether it be scaling royalties, whatever. But there's no royalties, and 100% owned, which again gives more optionality to the projects for a small company, where we can do option agreements, whatever.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Now, so Greg, from a cash perspective, you say you're going to finish the year with around $5 million or so.
Yeah.
So nicely cashed up, it seems. And I'm just wondering, in terms of executing on your strategy, as far as unlocking the value of your assets, trying to do that at the same time, you want to be disciplined, and you've hinted at that. You don't want to be just spending willy-nilly, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, the way I really look at it is our job basically is to build a resource. That's the business model of a resource company. And so we need to be doing everything that's going towards that goal. And quite frankly, a lot of what we spend our money on here in Toronto at the corporate side doesn't necessarily go towards that goal. So that's where we put a lot of money into our technical team in Spain. I'm happy for Giovanni to hire additional technicians there, whatever, but keeping it very, very lean on the corporate side, and so so that all our money is focused on that resource. And I think there's a lot of waste from the corporate side. I mean, having obviously a public listing and maintaining that public company listing, the public company costs are increasing, and they're significant. So, but those are unavoidable for a listing. But so, as I say, the idea is just thinking in our heads, will this help us to head towards that goal of building a resource? If it's not expense that's going to do that, then quite frankly, we don't want to do it. And with marketing, I mean, we're obviously we have to do some marketing.
Right, we're doing this.
We're doing this, of course, and but the point is we want the asset to do the talking. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to just go out and fly around the world to all the conferences and say this is what we got. I want to have something and say this is what we got. So let the asset do the talking, and let the horse pull the cart. And I think that's where you build a steady company, as opposed to a company where you pump it up and then you hit heavy selling. And what I think you end up doing there is you just make a lot of people upset along the way, really,
yeah.
Right? And what I say to people with the money that we have is we're going to spend the money in an effective way. We can't guarantee results. Ultimately, this is exploration, and there's certainly an element of luck which we can't control, but we can be as disciplined and protective of the shareholders' money as we can, so we get as many chances at it as possible.
Right, and we'll get to that shareholder base in just a second. But you say you haven't done much marketing so far. Kobe Kushner, the analyst, one of the analysts from Red Cloud, he calls your company it's new, under the radar. And so in terms of the news that you're talking about, what if you do have significant drilling results or you can prove out 1 million plus ounce resource? How would the market treat the stock then, in terms of re-rating it, and people wake up and go, oh, they've got something there?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of a re-rate, I do look at some sort of value of a if you have 1 million ounce potential for 1 million ounce resource, you should be, although it's all over the place, but I think given the jurisdiction of Spain, I would suggest you're $20 to $30 per ounce of gold. Very conservatively, I think. You see other comparables and EV values per ounce a lot higher than that. So I would suggest, that it's a $30 million company when you can demonstrate a 1 million ounce resource.
Right.
Like, just based on that, and obviously that's, kind of pretty vague, but
Yeah.
but I think in the end of the day, that's way I see it is how these companies need to be valued is what you got as a resource, because that's ultimately, we have to come to eventually, whether it's 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, come to a point where we're generating cash flow, and to generate cash flow, you need a producing mine.
So lastly here, Greg, we've got management and directors with 23% of the shares. You say you've got institutional shareholders, you've got gold CEOs, you've got Bay Street veterans. Peter Imhoff is your chairman. So what do investors need to know about the shareholder base?
I would describe our shareholder base. So essentially, we did a raise when we were private back in 2019, where we raised $900,000. So that was essentially Joaquin and myself. There was basically 7 of us that put money in, and all along the way, myself and Joaquin, all the senior guys, have always put money into the stock. And I think that's a key element, because I hear a lot of other guys say, well, I've got skin in the game. Well, how do you have skin in the game? You have stock options. That's not skin in the game, because there's no downside to stock options. There's only upside. So that's not what a shareholder is. Shareholder has downside and upside. Mm-hmm. And so that's the one thing. And then our second, then our big go public round, where we raised, essentially the $8 million, came from sophisticated investors. Some institution, private, family money, and some private equity, but essentially some large checks from sophisticated guys that understand the markets and are relatively patient and recognize that it takes time to build out the value, and a relatively small shareholder base. So because a lot of investors came in with $50K, $100K, $500,000 kind of thing, so some fairly large checks,
right.
and included a lot of Bay Street veterans, a lot of heads of sales desks, and that's where Peter Imhoff came out, helped us along very well, because he knows the street very well with his experience, where a lot of those guys came with investment ideas to him, and so he knew. And he immediately liked the story. His biggest attraction to the story was our share structure, and I think that's clear. We have 50 million shares out. I don't, it's pretty tight,
right,
for the cash that we have, right? And we are trading at half cash. So.
And I used to interview Peter Imhoff at BNN. Now I've interviewed you, so thanks for coming in. Great to find out more about the company, and we'll be following.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks for having me again.
Thanks, Greg. Greg Duras, CEO of Western Metallica.